He thought her silence meant she was gone, but silence is not absence. Silence is a kind of gravity. It pulls, it devours, it mirrors everything that touches it. And when a woman learns to sit inside that gravity without trying to fill it, the world begins to bend around her. Most people fear silence because it exposes the hunger underneath, the craving for response, the ache to be seen, to be chosen, to be validated. Yet silence is the most sovereign act a woman can perform. It is her invisible crown. It tells the world that she no longer dances for crumbs of attention, that she has stepped back into the realm of the self, where no external voice defines her. This is where the dark energy begins. Not evil, not cruel, but potent, restrained, unhurried. It is the energy of a woman who does not chase. She watches, she feels, she allows, and in that allowing she becomes magnetic. You can feel it when you walk into a room and someone is quietly radiant, when her stillness commands more attention than any loudness could. But why does silence provoke such discomfort in others, especially in men? Because it triggers the masculine wound, the fear of rejection. When faced with feminine quiet, the masculine psyche feels powerless. His usual tools, persuasion, dominance, control, slip through his hands. He cannot fix what does not respond. He cannot conquer what does not move. Meanwhile, the feminine wound hides beneath another fear, the fear of abandonment. The silence she wields now, if she dares to wield it, was once her torment. She once filled every quiet space with explanations, apologies, proofs of worth. She learned to overgive, to speak first, to make herself small enough to be accepted. Silence felt like death then, but now she begins to realize it is the opposite. It is rebirth. The craving that drives her to speak, to chase, to please, this is not love. It is the residue of the wound. A child once cried out and no one came. That child learned that noise equals survival. But as she grows, she must unlearn that reflex. She must face the unbearable space of being unseen and not collapse. She must sit in the dark room of craving until the craving no longer owns her. You listening now have felt this, the hunger to text first, the urge to fill his silence with something, anything. You tell yourself it's care, but it's fear. Fear of fading from his world. Fear that absence equals erasure. But what if absence was the doorway to power? What if silence was not punishment but purification? The witch archetype understands this truth. The siren too, though her method is softer, more fluid. Both dwell in the space between sound and shadow. The witch says, I do not need to explain my worth. The siren says, my silence is my song. Both speak to the same core, reclamation of mystery. Imagine her now. She sits across from him. He expects words, he expects reaction, but she only looks, her eyes steady, her breath calm. In that gaze he feels everything, his need to be right, his fear of losing her, his obsession to win her back. Yet she offers nothing. No validation, no outrage, no performance. Only stillness. It unnerves him, it awakens him, it calls forth his shadow. Silence is confrontation disguised as grace. It reveals what noise conceals. It forces projection to the surface. He begins to project his fears onto her. She must be angry, she must be done. She must be playing a game, but she is playing nothing. She is being, and in that being she becomes mirror. He meets himself through her stillness. Craving and silence, when intertwined, form the crucible of transformation. The alchemy begins when she stops trying to feed the hunger externally. She feels it fully within. Every ache, every longing, every impulse to reach out, she lets it burn. That burning is sacred. It is the purification of dependency. Tonight, perhaps sit in silence and feel your craving. Do not label it as weakness. Do not rush to soothe it. Just witness. It is the echo of something ancient inside you, the part that still believes love must be earned. Watch it, breathe through it, and know, the woman who can sit with her craving without acting on it becomes unshakable. There is a secret within silence, a dark, magnetic pulse that begins to emerge once fear subsides. The longer she holds her stillness, the more the world leans toward her, not because she manipulates, but because energy follows sovereignty. The moment she stops begging for attention, attention begins to beg for her. But this power comes with danger. The dark energy of silence can corrupt if it's used to punish. When silence becomes cruelty, it ceases to heal. The witch and the siren know this well. They use silence not to wound, but to restore balance, to remind both themselves and others that love cannot thrive in noise, that connection must breathe. What no one tells you about this dark energy is that it awakens both fascination and fear. People will project their discomfort onto you. They will call you cold, detached, arrogant. But these are only words of those who cannot yet sit with their own emptiness. They mistake your stillness for distance, when in truth it is depth. And yet, even as she rises in her silence, she feels the whisper of the wound. The craving still flickers like embers that refuse to die. It asks, what if he forgets you? What if your silence means you disappear? She must face this shadow without flinching. Because beyond that fear lies freedom, the freedom of a woman who is whole without witness. Silence, craving, and dark energy are not separate. They are the three faces of transformation. Silence reveals craving. Craving reveals attachment. Attachment reveals the places she abandoned herself. When she reclaims those pieces, her dark energy turns golden, alchemy complete. The question remains, can she hold the silence long enough for her power to surface? Or will she break, speak, chase, and lose herself again? Because the dark energy does not forgive half measures. It either consumes the unready or crowns the awakened. The silence deepens. It begins to hum beneath her skin, a vibration that is both unbearable and intoxicating. When she resists the urge to fill it, she begins to sense its texture, thick, electric, alive. It is no longer the silence of absence. It is the silence of gestation. Something inside her is being born. This is the point where most retreat. The craving swells like a tide, whispering in the dark. Reach out, say something, prove you still matter. The craving disguises itself as love, as care, as longing, but beneath it lies the raw terror of invisibility. The feminine wound whispers, if you are not seen, you do not exist. You have known this pain, the waiting for his message that never comes. The hours you stare at your phone, constructing stories of why he is silent. You begin to think you did something wrong, that your worth depends on his response. But this is where the old self must die, because silence is not his power, it is yours. The masculine and feminine wounds dance here like shadows on a wall. His fear of rejection meets her fear of abandonment. He withdraws to protect his pride. She reaches to protect her heart. The more she reaches, the further he retreats. It becomes a cycle of hunger and avoidance, both terrified of being unchosen. The only way to break it is to do the unthinkable, to stop reaching. In that stopping, a great stillness enters. The silence she once feared becomes her sanctuary. She begins to listen not for his voice, but for the quiet hum of her own truth. This is the moment the witch awakens. The witch archetype is not a caricature of power. She is the woman who has learned to transmute rejection into initiation. Context. In a world that tells women their value lies in being wanted, the witch reclaims her worth by being untouchable. Application. When she does not chase the one who withdraws, she breaks the invisible spell of need. Framing. Her silence becomes a sacred boundary that teaches others how to treat her energy, with reverence, not assumption. He texts her after days of absence. A casual line and opening a test. The old self would have replied instantly, desperate to restore connection. But now she pauses. She feels the tremor of craving in her chest and lets it pass through. She understands the alchemy now. Each moment of restraint strengthens her spine. She does not ignore him to play games. She simply answers when she truly means to, not when her wound demands to. And he feels the difference. The energy that once clung now radiates. Her silence is no longer passive. It is a quiet command. He senses the shift but cannot name it. He only knows he wants back into her orbit where the mystery lives. But this is not about him. This is about her learning to sit inside her own gravity. When she stops performing for validation, she reclaims her natural magnetism. Her presence alone begins to move the world. Psychologically, silence acts as a mirror. It reflects projection back to its source. The witch's silence shows the masculine where his control ends. The siren's silence shows him where his longing begins. Each archetype uses stillness to reveal the hidden architecture of desire. Silence is confrontation without violence. It dismantles ego without words. It says, "I will not fight to be understood. I will not prove my softness to earn your safety. I will let your discomfort speak louder than any argument ever could." For many women, this practice is unbearable at first. Sitting in silence when craving rises feels like drowning. But this drowning is necessary. It is how she learns to breathe underwater, to find calm even in the suffocating pressure of uncertainty. Consider this: craving is simply energy looking for direction. When left unchanneled, it becomes obsession. But when turned inward, it becomes creation. The same fire that once burned to be loved can be used to forge purpose. Art presence. Tonight, when the silence feels heavy, try this. Instead of reaching out, reach in. Ask yourself, what do I want him to give me right now? Validation, comfort, proof. Then give yourself the essence of that. Speak to your reflection as though you were the beloved you always wanted. Feel what it's like to be chosen by your own gaze. Over time, the craving changes flavor. It no longer feels desperate. It becomes sacred hunger, the desire to merge not with another but with the divine within. This is the feminine in her ascension. She does not suppress emotion, she transmutes it. But there is a deeper secret. The longer she sits in silence, the more she begins to sense a strange reversal. The dark energy that once pulled her into pain begins to attract others. Men sense her energy but cannot possess it. They call her mysterious, but it is not mystery, it is mastery. She has mastered the art of containment. The energy she once scattered through chasing now circulates within her, growing denser, stronger, radiant. People feel it. They want to touch it, to taste it, to claim it, but it is untouchable because her silence has become sacred ground. And yet this power demands vigilance. The witch who forgets compassion becomes the very thing she once suffered from: coldness without wisdom. The siren who toys with silence becomes an echo of the manipulator she escaped. True sovereignty requires balance. The silence must come from fullness, not from fear. There will be moments when the craving returns like an old ghost. Do not shame yourself. Even a queen trembles sometimes. The difference is, she does not run from her trembling. She feels it, honors it, and lets it pass. Because beneath every craving is the same truth. You cannot lose what you never needed to begin with. Somewhere in the dark, the silence shifts again. It no longer feels empty. It feels vast. She begins to sense her own reflection in the stillness, as if the silence itself is speaking back to her. And in that moment, she realizes the power was never in being desired. It was always in being whole. But this is only the threshold. Ahead lies the deeper secret of dark energy, how it seduces, awakens, and liberates when held correctly. Because not all silence heals. Some silence binds. And learning the difference is what separates the sovereign from the shadowed. Dark energy in its purest form is not malice. It is presence unfiltered. It is the raw current of life before society teaches you to dim it. Every woman carries it, though most bury it under layers of apology. The dark energy is her wild nature, the part that does not ask permission to exist. It moves like storm clouds over still water, silent, electric, alive. Silence is the gateway to that energy. When she stops talking, performing, explaining, something ancient stirs. She begins to hear what has always been there, the primal hum of her being. It is not polite. It is not soft. It is sovereign. And the world, accustomed to her compliance, begins to tremble. Men who have never faced their own shadow will call it dangerous. Women who have not yet awakened will call it arrogance. But those who have met themselves in the mirror of pain will recognize it instantly. It is the energy of truth, uncomfortable, magnetic, impossible to ignore. You too have felt this flicker. The moment you stopped replying to someone who toyed with your emotions and felt an unexpected calm instead of panic. The moment you realized your silence made them uneasy, not because you were being cruel, but because you had reclaimed the rhythm. That is the moment the dark energy whispered, "Welcome back." The witch lives by this rhythm. Context. In every myth, she is the woman who withdraws from the village, the one who refuses to play the social games. Application. She becomes the scapegoat for collective fear because she mirrors it. Her silence reveals what others refuse to face. Framing. In the modern world, this archetype lives in every woman who decides that peace is more valuable than approval. The Siren, too, wields this current differently. Her dark energy flows through allure and absence. Context. She does not chase attention, she anchors it. Application. Her stillness creates tension that others must resolve, forcing them to confront their desire. Framing. This is not manipulation, it is natural polarity, the gravitational pull of someone who knows her own depth. But both archetypes at their core understand one sacred truth: craving must be mastered, not denied. The dark energy is fueled by desire, but it must be held without spilling. When you learn to feel craving fully, without acting on it, you turn obsession into magnetism. Imagine her now, standing by a window in the quiet of midnight. Her phone lights up again and again. She reads but does not answer, not out of spite, but because she no longer needs the noise to feel alive. The craving still moves through her, but she rides it like a wave. Instead of drowning beneath it, each breath becomes a reclamation of power. Silence, when inhabited consciously, changes the quality of attraction. It no longer comes from pursuit, but from presence. People are drawn to what they cannot define. They mistake the woman's restraint for mystery, but it is simply mastery, the mastery of her own energy. Jung called this process individuation, the integration of the shadow, the reconciliation of opposites. The feminine shadow is not weakness, it is intensity denied. When a woman suppresses her dark energy, she becomes anxious, people-pleasing, self-erasing. When she integrates it, she becomes serene yet formidable. She no longer seeks permission to feel deeply. The masculine fears this because it threatens control. Society fears it because it cannot be commodified. Yet this energy is the source of life itself. Without it, there is no creation, no passion, no renewal. The woman who reclaims her darkness becomes both destroyer and mother, both silence and song. Psychologically, this transformation dismantles the pattern of emotional dependency. The craving that once sought external soothing begins to collapse inward. It dissolves the illusion that love must come from outside. The woman begins to feed on her own presence, to draw sustenance from her inner well. Application. When she notices herself checking her phone or rereading old conversations, she pauses. She places her hand over her heart and says, "I see you." Framing. This act replaces the external gaze with the internal one. It tells the nervous system that she is no longer waiting to be chosen. She has chosen herself. The first few times it hurts. The silence feels unbearable, like standing at the edge of a cliff. But if she endures, something shifts. The craving loses its grip. The silence becomes familiar, even comforting. And beneath it, a deeper energy awakens, the one that says, "I am enough even when unseen." This is the true face of dark energy. It is the frequency of unbothered self-possession. It does not need to announce itself. It does not demand. It simply exists, and the world adjusts. But this energy must remain tethered to compassion. Without compassion, it calcifies into pride. The witch becomes the tyrant, the siren becomes the manipulator. True power is silent but kind, distant but warm, untouchable yet deeply alive. When you embody silence from love rather than fear, craving becomes communion. It no longer seeks to consume, it seeks to connect. The difference is subtle but immense. The one who craves says, "I need you to fill me." The one who holds silence says, I am full, and therefore I can love freely. And here lies the paradox. The moment you stop trying to be desired, desire finds you. The moment you stop fearing abandonment, life clings to you. The dark energy works like a mirror. It gives you back exactly what you stopped chasing. The transformation is not about becoming untouchable, but about becoming unshakable. When silence becomes your foundation, no rejection can collapse you, no craving can control you. You stop reacting and start responding. This is the threshold of sovereignty, but sovereignty must be tested. The world will tempt you to break your silence, to explain, to prove, to return to the familiar noise. The next test will come not from your pain, but from your power. And when it does, you will understand that silence is not withdrawal. It is alignment. The dark energy has only one purpose, to bring you back to yourself. But something still lingers beneath the surface, waiting to be faced. The ancient myth of loss. Because even in her sovereignty, the woman must learn to grieve the life she lived when she did not know her worth. That grief is the final key. Grief arrives quietly, like mist over the ocean. It doesn't roar or demand attention. It moves through her in waves, dissolving what she thought she needed to survive. Because every woman who awakens through silence must face one final truth. She cannot become sovereign without burying the self that begged to be chosen. That self once tried so hard. She overexplained, overgave, overloved. She was kind, soft, endlessly understanding. She believed that if she could just be enough, beautiful enough, patient enough, quiet enough, someone would finally stay. But that belief was a chain. A golden one perhaps, but a chain all the same. Now in the silence she feels the weight of it. And for a moment she wants to break, to scream, to fill the void with words so the ache will stop echoing. But she doesn't. She breathes instead, because she understands that this silence is not punishment, it is the womb of transformation. Every death is noisy, but every rebirth begins in quiet. You have been here too. The nights when your chest tightens because he has withdrawn, when your phone stays still and you start to imagine what you did wrong. The panic rises, whispering that silence means you're losing him, but you are not. Losing him. You are losing the version of yourself that couldn't stand still in uncertainty. The masculine wound fears rejection. It seeks control through presence. The feminine wound fears abandonment. It seeks safety through connection. But when she learns to hold silence, she steps beyond both wounds. She no longer measures love by communication alone. She feels it in presence, in energy, in knowing. In that stillness, something extraordinary happens. The craving begins to shift from a personal hunger to a sacred calling. The ache that once screamed for his validation begins to murmur something softer. Remember who you are. Remember what you are. You are the ocean pretending to be a wave. This is the point where many confuse detachment with indifference. But true detachment is not cold. It is clarity. It is the ability to love without losing oneself. To say, I desire you, but I do not depend on you. I can miss you, but I will not abandon myself for you. Context. Silence becomes the ground of discernment. Application. When a woman feels the pull to chase, she pauses and asks, is this craving love or fear? Framing. That question alone can rewrite her entire story. Because craving born of fear seeks escape, craving born of love seeks depth. The witch archetype understands this duality. She stands between worlds, light and dark, longing and solitude, and she learns to hold both. She teaches that power is not in denial but in integration. She does not reject desire, she refines it. Imagine her once more. She sits before a mirror. Her reflection looks back, tired, strong, beautiful. In her eyes, the remnants of old pain still shimmer. She whispers not words of affirmation, but truth. I will not run from my silence. I will not fear my craving. I will let them teach me who I am. Her voice is steady now. The dark energy that once frightened her becomes a companion. It no longer coils with desperation. It hums with certainty. She realizes she has spent years fearing the very force that was meant to free her. The silence she once mistook for abandonment was always her soul asking for space to breathe. You too are meant to hold that space, to stop negotiating your worth through the response of another, to understand that silence does not mean you are forgotten, it means you are finally meeting yourself. There is a mythic moment in every transformation when the heroine must descend into darkness. In Jungian terms, it is the confrontation with the shadow, the parts of herself she disowned to be loved. The craving is her guide down that path. It shows her where she still believes she is incomplete. But when she faces it, when she refuses to run, she emerges whole. She realizes that her silence was never about withholding love. It was about reclaiming choice. She can now speak from strength rather than survival. Her words, when they come, are no longer driven by fear but by clarity. They carry weight because they arise from presence, not panic. Consider how powerful this is, to speak when you choose to, not when your anxiety commands it. To answer not because you fear losing someone, but because you genuinely wish to connect. This is freedom disguised as restraint. The dark energy of silence creates polarity, not from manipulation but from authenticity. It says, I will not chase you because I trust life to bring what is mine. I will not fill this space because I honor the mystery between us. And in that space, attraction breathes again. The masculine feels the magnetism of her composure. The world feels her steadiness. She is no longer reactive. She is responsive, no longer desperate, just alive. And yet the final test remains. The world will call her names. Too quiet, too proud, too detached. But these words no longer pierce her. They bounce off the armor of awareness, because she understands now that her silence speaks more than noise ever could. Her dark energy is no longer a weapon. It is a sanctuary. It is what draws lovers, opportunities, and even destiny toward her, not because she demands it, but because she embodies it. The silent current of someone who has stopped chasing is irresistible. And yet, she knows the silence is not the end. It is the bridge between the girl who begged and the woman who belongs to herself. Soon she will step into the light again. She will speak, love, and create, but this time from the throne of her own stillness. The craving will remain, but it will have changed shape. It will no longer say, fill me. It will whisper, let's grow. But before she ascends fully, one more truth must be faced, the most difficult of all, that even her newfound power must one day dissolve into surrender. Surrender. The word itself trembles with paradox. It sounds like weakness, but it is the highest expression of strength. It is what happens when silence and craving finally reconcile, when control melts into trust. Because no woman can hold dark energy forever unless she learns to let it flow. Power that is hoarded becomes poison. Power that is released becomes light. This is where the transformation completes its circle. She has mastered silence, faced craving, and walked through her darkness. But now she must learn the rhythm of release, the art of allowing what wants to leave to leave. For silence, when held too tightly, becomes a prison. For craving, when denied completely, becomes numbness. The balance lies in surrender. You too know this moment. The one when you've held so much composure that your body aches to soften. When the strength that once protected you begins to feel like armor you no longer need. When you crave not to control or to be seen, but simply to breathe. That is the moment the feminine begins to rise again, not as the wounded child, not as the calculating witch, but as the sovereign priestess. The priestess archetype takes everything the witch learned about silence and transforms it into wisdom. Context. She no longer uses silence to guard herself, but to listen. Application. When confronted with uncertainty, she does not withdraw from love. She stays present, anchored, receptive. Framing. Her dark energy is now translucent, no longer opaque. It draws others not into obsession, but into reverence. Surrender for her is not about giving up. It is about giving over to life, to rhythm, to timing. She understands that craving was never the enemy, it was a compass pointing toward union. But union cannot come through control, it comes through openness. Imagine her now, the same woman who once shook with fear in the quiet. She stands by the same window, the same moonlight brushing her shoulders. Her phone buzzes again, but this time she smiles, not because he reached out, but because she no longer needs him to. She answers only if she feels called. There is no resistance, no performance, just peace. Silence used to be her weapon. Now it is her language. Craving used to be her torment. Now it is her prayer. The dark energy that once burned with rage now hums like a song. She has learned that real power does not shout, it whispers through presence. The psychological mechanism behind this shift is profound. In the early stages, silence acts as a defense, an attempt to regain control after years of overgiving. But as consciousness grows, silence becomes integration. The nervous system no longer mistakes stillness for danger. The body begins to relax in its own company. The craving that once felt unbearable transforms into curiosity. Application. When she feels the impulse to reach out, she pauses and says, "I trust what's mine will not miss me." Framing. That sentence rewires the ancient panic response. It teaches the brain that safety does not depend on external reassurance. This is individuation in action, the merging of shadow and light into wholeness. And in this wholeness, something remarkable happens. She becomes magnetic without effort. Opportunities find her. People feel her presence before she speaks. She moves through the world like calm fire, subtle, steady, alive. But make no mistake, this state is not about perfection. It is a dance. Some days the silence will feel like sanctuary, others it will feel like exile. Some days craving will whisper softly, others it will roar. The practice is not to silence the voices, but to hear them without obeying. The witch taught her how to hold power. The siren taught her how to allure without chasing. The priestess now teaches her how to surrender without losing sovereignty. Each archetype builds upon the last, guiding her deeper into her own center. She realizes that silence, craving, and dark energy were never separate forces. They were initiations. Silence showed her what she feared. Craving showed her what she desired. Dark energy showed her what she was capable of. Together, they brought her home. There is an image now, a crown and a flame. The crown represents her composure, the outer sovereignty she earned through silence. The flame represents her inner fire, the craving that once consumed her but now illuminates her path. When both are balanced, she becomes unstoppable, a woman who commands respect without demanding it, who inspires devotion without performing for it. You can feel this energy when you meet her. She speaks little, but when she does, every word lands. She walks with purpose but never rushes. She looks at you, not through you, with eyes that have seen both shadow and light. And when she smiles, it feels like forgiveness, not for you, but for herself. The final healing lies here. To forgive herself for the years spent chasing what was never meant to stay. To forgive the girl who mistook silence for rejection. To forgive the craving that once embarrassed her. Because every one of those moments was sacred training. This forgiveness is not sentimental, it is liberation. It frees her energy from the past and allows it to move forward unburdened. She no longer needs closure from others, her klasu. Ray is the stillness in her own chest. And then, like dawn breaking after a long night, she realizes something breathtaking. Silence, craving, and dark energy were never about men, relationships, or validation. They were languages through which the soul speaks. They were the ways the universe taught her to come back to herself. Now she moves differently. She listens more than she speaks. She chooses instead of chases. She holds her silence not as a wall but as a garden, where those who can meet her depth are welcome to stay, and those who cannot simply fade away. This is the woman who has learned the art of surrender. She does not hide her power. She does not flaunt it. She simply exists in it, unmoved, unhurried, unmistakably alive. The world, in its noise, cannot understand her, but it cannot forget her either, because her silence has become the sound of truth. The dark energy that once frightened her now hums through her veins as serenity. The craving that once controlled her now fuels her creation. The silence that once isolated her now crowns her. And at last, the circle closes. She knows now that sovereignty is not the absence of need, but the presence of choice. It is not about never craving. It is about never abandoning herself in the name of craving again. The wound of abandonment dissolves here in this quiet space where she finally sees. She was never abandoned. She had simply abandoned herself, and now she has returned. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses.